Welcome to the Riverbend Awareness Project.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast episode are solely those of the individuals participating and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Riverbend Media Group or the Riverbend Awareness Project, its affiliates, or its employees. It is important to note that the discussion presented is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice. Listeners are encouraged to consult with qualified healthcare professionals for any medical concerns or decisions. The Riverbend Awareness Project is a product of Riverbend Media Group.
Are there other misconceptions or even just etiquette that the general public should know with service dogs? Sorry, that was kind of a two-pronged question. So any misconceptions that people kind of usually apply to service dogs, and then what etiquette should people use for when they're interacting with someone and their service dog?
So sometimes they feel like people that don't have service dogs sometimes don't see the need for them, maybe. So they see a dog, and not everybody loves dogs. Some people are allergic to dogs. Some people, I understand not everybody loves dogs.
Yeah, maybe they had a bad experience.
Maybe they're scared of dogs,
Yeah.
right? Like there's a whole range of things when you're encountering the public. So I do feel like maybe a misconception is some people think like, oh, they just want to bring their dog, right? That dog, there's no reason they need that dog. When all reality for a lot of people, the dogs are life-changing for them. And some of them can't function without some kind of service dog. So I'd say that's probably a big one. And then as far as etiquette, they're out working, they're out doing a job. Leave them alone. Most of the time, if you ask to pet them, and I'm not saying never, like sometimes you might ask and somebody says, sure, you can pet my dog. But for the most part, those dogs are out there working. They're out there doing tasks. They're supposed to be paying attention to their handler, their owner. Don't distract them. Don't go up and ask to pet the dog. Don't just let them go about their day, doing what they need to do, and just allow them to be able to do that. It's hard when you're trying to live your life, and everywhere you walk in, you have 5 people that are coming up and like, can we pet your dog? Can we? And not that we don't want to be mean at all. We'd love for you to be able to pet the dog. The dog's nice, but that also starts to distract them from what they need to be doing. And we don't want them to go in everywhere thinking like, oh, I just want everybody to pet me in here, right? They need to be paying attention. They need to stay on task. And so it's distracting when people come up. It is nice when people ask, but you get a ton of people that don't even ask, right? They just walk up, come pet the dog. That's a big no-no. Don't just walk up and pet the dog. At the very least, ask. But I would say generally, don't ask. Stay away. Just let them go about their day. They're trying to do the best they can. The dog needs to stay focused, so just let them be and let the dog work for them. And then also watch your kids. Kids are probably, and the kids don't know any better, right? If the parents don't tell them, hey, don't go pet that dog, or if you see a service dog in public, you need to leave them alone, let them do their job. So we get that a ton too, where, kids just walk up and try to pet the dogs. A lot of them with their parents standing right there, and the parents don't say, hey, no, leave the dog alone. They just watch their kids wander over, and so them controlling that, I think, is an important piece. Yeah. Anything to add to that?
I think kind of to add on to what you said about sometimes people don't always understand like why someone might need a service dog is there's going to be service dogs that you encounter in public where it's going to be very apparent why someone needs that service dog, right? Like a sightseeing dog, maybe someone who has some mobility issues, like it's going to be very apparent why they need that dog. But I think there's a vast majority of people who have service dogs on a very life-changing level because of their medical needs, and you're not always going to see it, right? Someone with a severe seizure disorder may walk around completely fine until they're in a full-blown seizure, right? And they're having a seizure episode, and then that dog is there. Or someone who has a psychiatric medical need for the dog to be with them, like you are not always going to see that. And so I think just being conscious of just because it's maybe not like a sightseeing dog or an obvious medical reason for why someone needs that service dog to perform medical tasks for them doesn't mean that they don't need that dog and that they don't have a legitimate medical need to have their service dog. And like Chris said, in so many ways, for so many people, they are life-changing. They give them freedoms back that they didn't have before. They give them comfort. They're able to have their medical needs met better. And oftentimes, a lot of times, in the family, it just kind of also helps with the family dynamic between everyone once they have a well-trained service dog. Peace of mind for maybe parents if you have a child with a seizure disorder or something like that. I think that just diabetic. We're working with a family member who we're training a diabetic alert, and so you're not going to know if someone has a blood sugar issue. So I think just being conscious of that and that they do truly need them, whether we can see what the needs are or not.
Because that's one of the questions, like, how do these service dogs change people's lives? And I think that's really a good thought to have. When you see a service dog, you're like, I might see like this much of how much that dog is changing that person's life, but it's like huge just for the person, for the people that care about that person. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And you may never see, in public a dog actually working outside of just checking in with their handler, but if someone has a serious medical event and you get to see the dog work to do what they're trained to do, like, they do amazing and phenomenal things for their handlers. And it's if you hope, especially because they're medical things, you don't ever have to see them work, but when they do, it's pretty special to see what they can do.
Is there anything else you wanted to kind of speak to the idea of how service dogs change people's lives?
What do you think?
I think we covered a lot of it kind of in a nutshell, but
We did. It was just really important to me to let people know, like, there is no there's no state certifications. It's the ADA that regulates it, which is why it's very important to make sure you're working with a reputable trainer. And a lot of times, like, if you do get a certificate or something, right, it's not going to be like a national, it's going to be whatever documentation your trainer gives you stating that they've been through the service dog training program. And some of the trainers have certificates. We give certificates for our programs, but we know the dog can do what the people trained us or paid us to train the dog to do. And we also have our own set of, like, if the dog doesn't pass off, we also deem it should be able to do as far as public access manners. Like, we're not going to sign off on that dog being a service dog. So I just felt like that was important. And like Chris said, dog training in general, like, just vetting who you're working with. So.
And this isn't service dog necessarily related, but we get a ton of our clients that have been to 1, 2, 3 different trainers and have the same issues and just don't. And I think it gives dog trainers in general a bad name because they go one place and they get this advice and they go another place. And a lot of these trainers are just inexperienced, don't have the qualifications, don't have a lot of stuff that they need. And it just kind of puts a bad taste in people's mouth because they're like, I've already paid for 3 different trainers. A lot of times by the time we're getting them, they've already been to 2 or 3 trainers. So we pretty much work through and we kind of have, we do evaluations and stuff. And so we meet with them and we see the dog and we see the issues and then we're realistic with them. This is what we can do for you. This is what we're not going to be able to fix this. A dog that's been doing something for 7 years straight, and now you want us to fix it all of a sudden. We're going to be realistic and say, can we make it better? Can we make it 10 times better, 100 times better? Sure. Can we give you tools to manage? Can we can do all of that, but to tell you, oh yeah, we'll just fix that, is unrealistic, right? And so we try to be very realistic when people come in, and so they understand what is going to happen, kind of their expectations. And so that way, by no means do we just say, oh yeah, like, pay us and we're going to fix your issues. There's some that we don't work with at all, right? They come in and just say, hey, I don't think we're the trainer for you, or I don't think we're going to be able to help you. So if we can refer them to somebody else that we think can, then we're willing to do that. But our goal is, in all of the training we do, whether service dog, regular training, is to get them the goals that they want done. So get the dog to be able to do what they want, and help them be successful. And if we don't feel like that's something we can do, then we're not going to do it.
And I think too, like going back to service dogs, a lot of people will ask, like, why are they so expensive? And a lot of it is the time that goes into making sure they're adequately well trained to be able to perform the medical tasks and go into public. And when you're finding dogs from very specific breeders or vendors, whether in or out of the country, that takes a lot of it too. And so I think whether it's regular training or service dog training, there's a lot to be said to, like, some of those things might be very expensive, but if you're working with a reputable company, your result is probably going to be far better. And those trainers have spent years and often decades honing their skills to be able to provide you the result that you're hiring them to give you.
I was going to touch on one thing, sorry, that you said that I had never even thought of, but makes complete sense, the whole kid thing. So maybe like kids coming up to service dogs, obviously that parent should be like, nope. But maybe have a conversation with your kids if they're old enough to understand. Be like, hey, see how they have that little jacket? Maybe like something to the effect of, like police officers and firefighters, they have uniforms. Well, that's like a kind of equivalent. I don't know, however you could explain it to your kids, but like I'd never had that thought. I don't have children. So,
Yeah.
But I think that's a great thought to have. Obviously, as an adult, you should be like, yeah, I should be responsible and not disrupt that person in that working dog's life. But kids won't understand unless you teach them. So why not teach them that dog has a job and we don't want to distract them from it?
Yeah.
So
for most kids, they just want to go pet the puppy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Most people want to pet the puppy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that was super cool thing that I thought that I hadn't even considered. And then kind of, I guess, a final question, unless there's other things that you guys wanted to talk about after this question that I missed and we can go back. But retired service dogs. So I guess we kind of talked about this before. But what happens, I guess, with retired service dogs? And then what happens if the service dog's handler or owner either passes on or doesn't need them anymore? What happens to that service dog?
Yeah, so usually, for the most part, if somebody has a service dog, when the dog retires or is old enough that it can't complete tasks anymore, or they feel like health-wise can't continue to do what it's doing, usually they're going to kind of retire the dog and they're going to keep the dog. It's very, very rare that somebody has spent that much time and been that close to a dog for that long that they're not going to keep the dog. So a lot of times they'll keep the dog, and with a lot of those, you'll actually see them start to prepare as the dog's aging and they know the dog's getting, a year or two out from being able to work. They'll already be in the process of trying to get another service dog. That way they don't have a lapse in what they need. So that's not uncommon to see, but most people are going to keep the dog, and I mean that it's pretty much part of their family. We have had a case where somebody's passed away and they've left that they want us to kind of decide what's going to happen to the dog. In those cases, the dogs will come back to us, and we're going to try to find a good home for the dog. If we can place the dog again, that's an option. But a lot of that's specific to the dog, the situation, all that kind of stuff. Not overly common, but if it does happen, then either the dog stays with them if they retire, if they were to pass away. And some of that too, the family can decide what happens with the dog. A lot of times they're attached to the dog too. The dog's been part of the family, has been involved in everything. So if they were to pass away, a lot of times somebody in the family is like, I want the dog.
That's really common.
And so you don't see it a whole lot, but if we were able to get one of the dogs back, or if the dog came back to us, then if we could try to assign the dog to another handler that meets their needs, then that could be an option too.
Well, thank you guys for coming in. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you was like, I wanted to make sure we talked about this?
I was trying to think as we went through it, but
Like, you covered a lot of things. Like some of the questions I didn't even ask because you guys were on it. So it was awesome.
No. Do you think there's anything we didn't touch on?
No, I just think in general, dogs are everywhere in this world. They've been popular for a long time, not only in law enforcement and facilities, and you're starting to see a lot of schools have dogs. You're starting to see detention centers, hospitals. I mean,
Jails.
jail. It just goes on and on. Dogs are being used and have been for a long time, but are starting to be used everywhere for all sorts of different things: emotional support dogs, therapy dogs, service dogs. What I would tell people is, if you're going to invest in a dog, I think it should be required. Like if you're going to get a dog, you should be required to have to do training with the dog.
Let's go back to shelters.
If we did if that's kind of how things were set up, our shelters would be empty, right? There are so many dogs in shelters. There's so many dogs that aren't taken care of. If you're going to get a dog, view it as an investment, whether it's going to be a service dog or just a regular pet dog that you want to be with the family and just be a good family dog. Take the time, invest in training with a good trainer. Find somebody that has history that you can trust, that you can work with, and start at a young age. We get people, if you rescue a dog, well, then start there. Sometimes you don't have control. The dog's already 2 or 3 and you're doing an awesome thing rescuing the dog. But at that point, get training. Most people don't have a whole lot of understanding on how to train a dog. We're people and we think they are kind of learn the same way we do, and they don't. So I would just say, find somebody that knows what they're doing, get the dog trained. And most of that training is education for yourself. We tell people all the time, when you come through training with us, we can train dogs. We have to train you so that you can train your dog, so that you can work with your dog, so you can be successful, so that you and the dog can live the best life ever. So that's kind of my final piece: is getting a pet or a service dog or any type of dog is an investment. Invest in yourself and invest in the dog so that you guys have a long, happy life together.
I agree with everything you said.
Well, thank you guys so much. Appreciate your time and your knowledge and all the insights that you provided today. There's a lot to think about, and I hope that whoever listens considers all the great things that dogs do in the world.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for listening to the Riverbend Awareness Project. You can find episodes wherever you get podcasts or on the Riverbend Media Group podcast page.